Well, Leigh, it's the first chance we've really had to sit down since the appointment of Matt Taylor as our new head coach. You know, what attracted you to go and scout him out and then appoint him?
Well, the process was that I sat and worked out a profile with Jamie Fullerton. And, you know, you can, whenever we advertise the head coach or management job here, I'll guarantee you between 50 and 100 people will apply. I didn't want to go through that merry-go-round again, frankly, and I said to Jamie, go and find me the best 3 young coaches in the country in your judgment. And he did, and he came to see me with 3 names, and I said to him, who in your judgment is the best of these 3? And he said, Matt. I said, okay, I want to meet him. So I met him for 3 hours about 3 weeks ago, and we got on really well. If you've got to talk to anybody for 3 hours, you've got to get on with them. Liked him. Liked his style, liked his eloquence. I liked his experience, albeit at an under 18, under 21 type level. And he'd been a hell of a player himself. But it was his ambition and his character and his being ready for the fight that I liked about him. And so the following week I met him again. I went down to Oxford and met him again. And we spent another couple of hours talking, and that was it. We thought we'd found our man. And so it was based really on, I didn't want to go through the merry-go-round of the same old names, the same old interview process. I wanted to go through a process of almost laser-like selection of someone we wanted to run this football club as head coach. And Jamie, as I explained, gave me this very clear list, and we identified Matt. From that list, as I said, I spent 5 hours collectively with him. It was a really comfortable 5 hours, and so we made the appointment. And I think we're very lucky to have someone who's come from Tottenham with his pedigree into this football club, with the right level of ambition and the right level of drive, and the fans will really like him.
And you mentioned that pedigree there. He has got a very good record as a coach in guiding young players up into a first team environment. Are you again looking for him to continue that here? Was that something again that was a clear attraction? Yes,
I think the ability to bring young players through is always an attraction for a club like ours, and the ability to do that is critical for that role. But it's also the network of, he knows a lot of people, and he's still young enough to play with quite a few of them. So he knows a lot of young footballers around the country. He's worked with a lot of academies, and I think the combination of him with Jamie and with Neil McDonald, it's the right sort of chemistry, the right sort of combination of talents I'm looking for. It's interesting, when I was talking to Matt, I said, you haven't managed at League 2 level other than some period at Swindon. Clearly, that's something we need to think about. He said, yeah. So I said, you're going to bring in as your number 2, and unhesitatingly, he said Neil McDonald. It wasn't even a moment's hesitation. And that gave me confidence that he'd thought this through, and Neil has got all the experiences of Bolton and Blackpool and Carlisle and more recently Barrow, that I also think we need to create the right combination of skills to run the football club. So with Matt, Neil and Jamie, that's as good as you can get in my judgment, but we've got to win some football games, which we monumentally failed to do last year to the extent they wanted us to. So we'll see how it goes. But I think we've thought it through. We've been very methodical. We've used Jamie as his new role to guide us through this process, and we've ended up where we are. Of Matt, coupled with Neil, critically as well with Matt Sadler staying as pro development coach. So he's specifically looking at bringing these players from the academy into first team and managing that process. Actually, we were good at that last year, to be fair. I think, with people like Tom and Tommy Leake, and with, of course, Sam Perry coming through, and Joe Willis at the end of the season coming through and showing real promise. I need to see that conveyor belt continuing and hopefully increasing. So that's where Matt will focus his attention on, and I'm glad Matt's staying because he gives us that sort of Walsall stability I'm looking for. So that's where we ended up.
And you mentioned about the chemistry there with Jamie, Matt Taylor and Neil.
Yeah.
How important was it to have another experienced head come in to almost again guide and advise Matt in what is really his first in men's football?
Well, it is important. No one has all the answers here. I mean, success is never down to an individual. It's down to a combination of people and skills. And I think Matt, along with Neil, is the right combination for us. And as I mentioned, Matt was unhesitating in his answer. I want Neil McDonald to come along with me. And so it became quite easy from that point of view because he'd already done the work himself and they knew each other. So that became important. And if Matt had said, I want to bring in another under 18 or under 21 coach from somewhere else that looked like him, I'm looking for someone to bring someone who's going to challenge thinking of Matt and challenge the thinking of Jamie and someone who's been there, done it, along with the obviously talent that Matt has got. Seemed the right thing for me for Walsall Football Club in this, where we're at this moment in time as our development. So, as ever, I've learnt how risky football can be. But I just feel good about this, and I enjoyed my time talking to them. I asked Jamie to rough us up, frankly, and make us, I suppose, more edgy, more difficult. He's done that. He's been already pretty influential in the way that we go about this football club, and that's exactly what I asked him to do.
And one of the first major things that Matt is going to have on his hands is that we've currently got 10 first team players contracted to the club. Again, it's going to be another big summer. I suppose the question really is Matt going to be backed and supported during this summer transfer window?
Of course. That's my role, is to back him and support him as much as we can. But I think when people say back and support, what they're normally talking about is the budget for the playing staff. And of course we will be sensible about that and do what we should do about that and supporting him. But I remind everyone on this that there was a club in the playoff final, Wembley, this weekend, got the lowest budget in the EFL. It's not all about money, and the club with the biggest budget in League Two is nowhere near the playoffs. So yes, he'll be supported, but not just with a competitive budget in a more general sense and stuff we want to do at the training ground, which we're doing. I want a better pitch, which we're spending money on at the moment. So there's lots of other things that we'll do around creating a better football environment at Walsall Football Club, and the budget is one pretty important element of it. But it's almost becomes a fixation. What's the budget? Well, it's that particular number, but don't use that as an excuse because there's a club at the weekend that's not using that as an excuse, and I won't let them use it as an excuse with me either. We want success.